the pictures, the first picture is kind of graphic. It's not like a dead body graphic, but it's like a really beaten up face and might be kind of gross or something.
Okay.
Whatever, ready?
Little warning. Whenever you're ready.
Okay. In a recent case in Fullerton, a man named Kelly Thomas, diagnosed with schizophrenia, dies from injuries he sustained during his arrest from the Fullerton police. On July 5th, 2011, around 8:30 p.m., Fullerton PD was called that someone was vandalizing cars in a parking lot of a slide bar. Prior to this event, Thomas had 92 encounters with the police between the years of 1990 and 2011. According to the police, Thomas initially resisted arrest and backup was called. 6 officers were involved in his arrest.
Pick mute. Don't touch the other one. Did you touch the other one? There you go.
Okay. 6 officers were involved in Thomas's arrest. Thomas, who was unarmed, had severe injuries to his head, neck, and face. He later slipped into a coma, and on July 10, 2011, 5 days after his beating, died. The 2 officers that were involved in his arrest were charged with second-degree murder and involuntary manslaughter. Both officers were found not guilty in January of 2014. Soon thereafter, protests began by the communities. Ultimately, Thomas's mother was awarded $1 million, and his father sued the city of Fullerton and was awarded $4.9 million. Many people believe that more needs to be done for the mentally ill homeless community. Police departments and jails are trained to deal with mentally ill. They're trained to deal with and handle mentally ill the population. Everyone has an opinion and opinion on police brutality. Today I'm going to bring to life the dangers of police brutality. I intend to give different perspectives of the crime. One being the victims, second being the communities, and last the police's views. But what is police brutality? Police brutality is the use of excessive or unnecessary force by police when dealing with civilians. And by excessive use of force, I mean the force that is well beyond what is necessary to handle a situation. Police brutality can be present in a number of ways. The most common is a physical form. Officers use nerve gas, batons, pepper spray, and tasers and guns to physically intimidate or intentionally hurt civilians. Police brutality can also take place in the form of false arrests, verbal abuse, and racial profiling.
Is it in a slideshow?
Yeah.
It's the back button. The one closest to you.
For example, Trayvon Martin, a 17-year-old boy, was shot and killed by a local neighborhood watchman, George Zimmerman, on the night of February 26, 2012. On February 26, around 7:11 p.m., local police station received a call from Zimmerman stating that, as he quoted, "There's a suspicious man and he looks like he's either on drugs or he's up to no good." Decides to follow him, get out of his car, and approach him, after being told by dispatchers not to. Zimmerman stated that Trayvon was beating him and that he shot him out of self-defense. Witnesses said that Zimmerman appeared fine and not appear injured. Zimmerman was later charged with second-degree murder but was acquitted of his crimes on July of 2013. So it is believed that he started over here at 7-Eleven and walked all the way over here. He walked 0.7 mile to get to this neighborhood. He started here and he walked here. And Zimmerman saw him here, followed him here, and then found him and shot him here. As a result of Trayvon Martin's trial, George Zimmerman spurred African Americans to begin the Black Lives Matter movement. The Black Lives Matter movement was nationally recognized following the deaths in 2014 of Michael Brown in Ferguson and George Garner in New York City. Participants in the movement have protested the deaths of numerous African Americans by police action or while in custody. Using homicide figures by the 2016 FBI Uniform Crime Report released September 25th, Manhattan Institute fellow Heather McDonald found the number of Black homicide victims had jumped nearly 900% per year since the Black Lives Matter took root in 2014. This movement strives to bring awareness to communities of the injustices by law authorities and bring changes against law enforcement. The hashtag Black Lives Matter movement wants to stop violence by involving local communities and bring awareness to these crimes against the public, to district attorneys, mayors, and their government officials in order to reform the laws that perpetuate this unlawful behavior of law enforcement. Many sources say they approve of the police officers, but policing as a practice is very distrusted. American historian Mayor Francis Berry quoted, "When you have police officers who abuse citizens, you erode public confidence in law enforcement. That makes the job of good police officers unsafe." Majority of police officers feel their voices are not being heard when it comes to police brutality. An anonymous officer in an interview stated that 10 seconds you see of a man being beaten with a baton, it looks horrible even, but you don't always know what the man was doing. Any use of force looks horrible, even if it's completely necessary. And another officer stated, "The media takes one where people think that must be all law enforcement, and it really hurts officers." The Washington Post Democracy, an article in the Washington Post Democracy Dies in the Dark article says that 37 police officers were fired combined. 1,881 police officers were fired since 2006. Of those officers, 451 successfully appealed and won their jobs back. Police brutality is never an okay thing, and it should never be acceptable. But there's always more than one side to a story. The officers and victims are the only ones who truly know the whole story. But with media, the communities get involved, and that causes protests. We fear the police, but the police also fear us because of all the negative things that are being said. And knowing that not knowing what is going to happen to them when it comes to an arrest. We have to remember that all cops aren't bad. They put their lives on the line for us every day. Changes need to be made, and we have to remember that all lives matter. Thank you.
All right. Wait. I'm jumping the gun here. Chris, what'd you think?
I thought that the attention getting was really good, and so were the visuals. And how she showed like the Zimmerman thing. Obviously.
So that's it. Okay. Well, I like the attention device. I like the example. It's a local example. It's something that people can relate to. So most people here probably have a memory of it, even though it happened, 5 or 6 years ago, and it was resolved 3 years ago. It's still something that's local, and I think that'll draw people's attention in pretty well. The pictures, of course, are dramatic and compelling. And I appreciated the warning that you gave us about that. That seemed reasonable. The purpose statement was very clearly stated. That part I thought was good. And I also thought that you had a good preview of what the supporting structure was going to be in the speech. Now, although I thought the supporting structure was good at the beginning, in the body of the speech, I think it's a little bit problematic because you don't really tell us as you're getting to each of these points that that's where we are. I thought the material started to run together a little bit on some of those points, and that they needed to be more distinct. Like when you're talking about the impact on the police force, I thought you were still talking about the general issues of what happens in the communities, and it suddenly dawned on me when you were in halfway through that. I said, okay, oh, this is actually the third section of the speech, and so you need to have a clearer indicator as we're getting to those particular points. I did hear information being cited on all of the particular points. I thought that was pretty good. The Trayvon Martin case, I think, is problematic because it's not a police matter so much. George Zimmerman wasn't a police officer. At best, he was a neighborhood, volunteer. And he's certainly not somebody. So it would be tough to classify that as police brutality in that situation. And because you have visuals that relate to that, it makes it seem like that's a key example for your point. And I don't think it fits the category that you're talking about. The way it is relevant, excuse me, is the way that it contributed to a movement to address these kinds of issues. And I think that matters. The Black Lives Matters movement, for instance, is something that needs to be included in this process. You talk about it a little bit. Where it came from, that's tangentially relevant. And what it is they're trying to accomplish, I think that's something that's also important, that they're focused on communities being able to reform what's going on and change things that they see as being problematic. Now the question becomes, how problematic is it? There was a statistic that you presented that suggested that the black homicides went up substantially after this movement started. I'm going, now, is that because police are not cracking down on crime, or is this because police are killing more black suspects? It was not clear what this information was talking about here, and so I thought that was a little bit confusing. The police practices issue and the way it hurts the officers in their reputations or their ability to do their job, the quotes from the anonymous police officers who are in essence saying, look, you don't always see what's going on here. There's a reason that these kinds of things happen. I thought that was okay. I was a little bit confused about what the point was on the end when you had 1,000 officers, or whatever the number was, lost their jobs, and 400 of them got it back after the appellate process. I'm going, so are the rules working? They're not working. They're too easy on the police. They don't look at the issues the same way that the community does. Is the reason the police officers lost their job in the first place is because they were using excessive force, or was there some other reason? I think that you've got good information here, but it feels incomplete. It doesn't. I'm not sure that the details. Yeah, it doesn't. I'm not sure it even fits your subject. I assume that most of the police officers were dismissed because of excessive force information, but some of them might have been dismissed for something else. That's why we need more detailed information. Generally, why you want to use direct quotes, because it'll have that kind of information in it. We haven't been emphasizing delivery heavily. It's only a couple of sections on the evaluation rubric here. Same kind of thing that I mentioned earlier. You want to do less reading and more talking to us. I know that you want the information and you want to be on top of it, but you also need to kind of connect with us on that subject. Here's what we're talking about. All right, thank you.